Hey guys, so I want to talk about using stalls or using cubicles as we call them here in the UK and something that's known as secondary paresis. So using stalls, when I used to go into the toilet, in the past, I wouldn't even consider using a stall because it was more important to me to appear as though I didn't have paresis. So I'd step into the toilets and, praying that there'd be nobody in there. And if there wasn't anybody in there, I'd go straight to the urinal and just hope that nobody walked in. Because I knew that if somebody walked in, that was it, game over. So a lot of the times I'd go into the toilet, and if there were guys in there, I'd walk up to the urinal knowing full well that I'm going to lock up, but I would do it anyway, just to appear as though I was one of the boys. And that's the secondary paresis. So not just the inability to develop a stream, but the psychology that is going on even prior to the event. And it's the issue around wanting to appear as though you don't have paresis. And it's not a strategy of recovery. I remember a situation where I was at a comedy club and there was a mid-session interval and everybody headed off to the toilets, and I figured I better go now because I don't want to end up going during somebody's comedy act. So anyway, I went and it was really busy. I went into the toilets and I stood at the urinal knowing full well that I wasn't going to be able to go. And I even pretended, oh, okay, so this would be the correct amount of time, give it a shake as though I'm shaking something off, zip up, and then walk out. And I was still bursting for a pee. And a co-worker walked in. This was a Christmas night out, a work Christmas party that we were on. And he walked in and said, "How's it going, Mike?" I'd had a few beers at this point, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And him walking in was enough to break my pattern a little bit. We get in this train of thought, and it's difficult to break free from that train of thought. So he broke my pattern, and I just said to him, "Oh, I'm just going to go in here," because one of the stalls became available. Someone had walked out of one of the stalls. So I saw that as my opportunity. And I just thought, what the hell? There was a big queue. So I knew that the other guys had just seen me at the urinal. But in that moment, I didn't care. Got myself into a stall, closed the door, locked it behind me. I was able to develop a stream and I was able to go. So that was a kind of a breakthrough then. And this led to me accepting where I'm at, accepting what I was currently capable of and what was currently beyond me. And I remember talking about this with a friend of mine. He also had paruresis. It was kind of funny actually because I didn't know he had paruresis. I mentioned it one night. I said, I can't go next to other guys. And he said, "Oh yeah, paruresis." I was stunned by that. But he told me that he'd recently began queuing for cubicles. And that's something I would never do. I'd never stand there and wait for a cubicle to become available. And he told me that it's very common on the club scene for people to go into a cubicle so that they can snort coke or do whatever drugs they maybe want to do in there. So it's not an uncommon sight to see a guy queuing for a cubicle. And I started to do this. I'm going to show you how I went about doing it because it can feel a little bit funny. You're already a little bit maybe a little bit uneasy because you're confronting a phobia. So to be stood there in the toilets doing nothing, it's like, okay, should I stand like this? How would a cool guy stand? Maybe like this with my arms folded. So I just took something I'd learnt from my martial arts training, which was to stand like this. So you have your hand on your elbow, like that. And this is, in martial arts, called the ready position. It's the ready position because at any point you could do a back fist. So that's how I would stand, and I would just, stand there patiently. And the funny thing is, I'd go into toilets, and in the past I would usually make a beeline for the urinal. Now I noticed I'd go into the toilets and I'd see other guys queuing for the cubicle, and I'd just queue behind them. When the cubicle became available, I'd go in there. I treat the cubicle as though it's a parking space. So it's mine for as long as I need it. Now, a little tip I'm going to share with you. What used to put me under pressure is the whole thing around time. So let's say you've just left your group of friends to go to the bathroom, or you've left the business meeting, or you've left the social situation. I'd be thinking to myself, okay, I've been in here a long time. They must be thinking, where's Mike? He's taking a long time, isn't he? And it would put me under pressure. So what was really 1 minute would feel like 5 or 10 minutes. So because of the pressure, it skews the amount of time that you're actually in there. And I started using this technique of, I'd get into the stall, take out my mobile phone, look at the time, and I would commit to staying in there for 5 minutes. Whatever happens, okay, I don't know if I'm going to pee, or, I don't know whether peeing will happen, or maybe it won't happen, maybe it will. I don't know. All I know is I'm going to stay in here for 5 minutes, and whatever happens, happens. If I pee after a minute, I'm still going to stay in here for 5 minutes. That's to get used to making other people wait, not being so much of a people pleaser. It's your parking space for as long as you need it. And what happens is I put the phone down, or I hold it in my hand. 1 minute goes by. Maybe 2 minutes go by. And I can remember a lot of instances where 2 minutes would go by. I've not developed a stream yet, but I think to myself, wow, I've still got 3 whole minutes left. And sometimes I'd let off a sigh, and okay, I've got 3 more minutes left. And a stream would start to develop. And this technique has really helped me. Also, another thing I do, I get into the stall, I don't immediately unzip. I've trained myself to bide my time, not rushing. So I'd get into the stall, I'd stand there, breathe. I've made it into the stall. That's an achievement in itself, because in the past I wouldn't even go into the toilet. I'd try to avoid it somehow. So remember, this is breaking the avoidance pattern. Wow, I made it. I'm in the stall. I've already succeeded. So I'd breathe, and I'd think, okay, and then step to the toilet and get myself ready, take out my phone, and then just be curiously waiting to see what happens. So it's the attitude that you walk into the toilets with. So if you go into the toilets and you decide to use a stall, if you do that with the attitude of, I'm hiding, I'm avoiding it, you're going to be stood there thinking that that's what the other guys are thinking. So what you want to do is have the attitude of, I'm using a stall because I'm dealing with my paresis right now and I'm doing my graduated exposure work. So you're not going into the stall because you're hiding, and don't assume that the other guys are thinking that as well. Instead, assume that what they're thinking is either he needs a shit, or he just wants a bit of privacy, or he has paruresis and he's doing his graduated exposure work. So you're not using the stall because you're avoiding it. You're using the stall because that's where you're at right now. You know what your current capabilities are and you're doing your graduated exposure work. I think using stalls is becoming more and more common nowadays. I can remember using the urinal, and because I would rush the whole thing, I'd think that I'd finished my stream, and I'd shake it off until nothing more would come out, but I'd put it back in my boxers, and as I'd gone to walk away, I felt some dribble come out, and it's the most horrifying thing, especially if you're out in your nice clothes and everything. The last thing you want is to feel dribble come down your leg, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And I was astonished when I was working in the gym one day and I heard my friend who doesn't have paresis, I heard him talk about how he'd gone to take a piss and some dribble had come out, and it had made him feel like he was an old man, that his tubing wasn't working quite right. And I heard another guy say that that's why he likes using stalls, because he can take some tissue and soak up any remaining drips that come out. So I've pretty much made it a lifestyle to use stalls, because after I've done my business, I take some tissue, push it against the tip of my penis, and I just relax. I take a step away from the toilet and I just relax. And some dribble comes out. And to figure out whether that's what actually was going on, because I didn't know whether it was my mind playing tricks on me. Like, I'd walk away and think, was that dribble I just felt there? Or have I become so paranoid about this that my mind's playing tricks on me? So I tested it out one day. I took a piss at home, took some tissue, and took a step away, waited for a bit, and then I looked at the tissue and you could see like a wet patch where some dribble had come out. So it's actually, I believe, hygienic to use a stall for that purpose. So when you go into the bathroom, don't make it about, it's not about being a man, whatever that is anyway. It's about emptying your bladder. However you go about doing that, each to their own, okay? Toilets are there to serve a very specific purpose, and that is to empty your orifices, to empty your bladder and to do your number twos. How you go about doing that is up to you. Now, because you use a stall, you're not invading on anyone else's privacy. It's not like you're trying to take a crap in the sink. And I don't mean to get all graphic on you here, but let's put it into perspective. Using a stall, you're not invading or encroaching on anyone else's privacy. Don't make it about, as I said, being a man, whatever that is. You're there to empty your bladder, so it's okay to know the level that you're at. Remember, assume that the other guys are thinking, he's taking a shit, he's playing with his phone, he's sending his girlfriend an email on his smartphone, he likes a bit of privacy, or maybe He has paresis. I used to have that. I know what it's like. Maybe he has paresis and he's doing his graduated exposure. Good lad. He made it into the toilet. Okay? Hope you got something from that. Catch you on the next video.